Buy my painting. My little sister needs milk. The little girl's voice was soft but firm, rising above the hum of morning traffic on Fifth Avenue. She sat cross-legged on a flattened piece of cardboard, her jeans faded at the knees, her hands stained with crayon wax. Beside her was a smaller child, barely 4 years old, clutching a worn teddy bear. Between them lay a spread of hand-drawn pictures, each colored with the careful patience of someone who had learned to make beauty out of scraps. A gust of autumn wind lifted the corners of her sign. The words were written in uneven letters, but the message was clear. She was not begging. She was offering. She was selling her art to buy milk for her sister. People passed quickly, their coats brushing the air, their eyes fixed on their phones. Some frowned, some smiled faintly, but no one stopped until a black sedan eased to the curb. A man in a navy suit stepped out, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. Ethan Hale, founder of Hale Systems, was on his way to a meeting that would decide a multi-million-dollar merger. He had never planned to stop for anything, but the sign caught his eye, and the voice that spoke it held him in place. He approached slowly, adjusting his tie, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The little girl looked up, her gaze steady and bright. "Good morning, sir. Would you like to buy one?" she asked. Ethan glanced at the drawings spread on the cardboard. Most were simple scenes, flowers, a sun, a small house, but one stood out. It was a tall silver building with gold light at the top. His breath caught. It was his building, the Hale Systems Tower, drawn from across the river. "You drew this?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she said. "It looks like it touches the sky. I thought maybe the people inside would like to see how it looks from down here." The answer struck him harder than he expected. He crouched beside her, the edges of his expensive suit brushing the concrete. "How much for this one?" She tilted her head thoughtfully. "You can decide. Just make sure it is enough for milk." Behind her, the little sister stirred, rubbing her eyes. The older girl reached back and smoothed her hair with quiet care. Ethan stared, unable to look away from that simple act of love. He took out his wallet, placed several bills beside the painting, and said softly, "Keep painting, little one. You see the world better than most." She smiled, small but certain. "Thank you, sir. I will." As Ethan turned to leave, the morning light caught the crayon sky in her drawing. The gold streak shimmered like sunrise over glass towers. He paused, realizing that the picture in his hand was not just a child's art. It was a reflection of everything he had forgotten to feel. The next morning, the city woke beneath a pale gray sky. The air smelled of rain and exhaust, and the rush of traffic was steady even before sunrise. Ethan Hale stepped out of his penthouse, his thoughts already heavy with numbers, deadlines, and the upcoming board meeting. Yet something from yesterday refused to fade. The child's voice, soft but firm, echoed in his head. "Buy my painting. My little sister needs milk." He had placed the drawing on his office desk the night before. It leaned against a stack of financial reports, its crayon colors bright against the steel and glass of his world. He had meant to leave it there only for a moment, but when he turned off the lights, the faint gold of the sky in the picture seemed to glow. For reasons he could not explain, he had not thrown it away. Down on Fifth Avenue, Anna sat again on the same piece of cardboard. Her little sister, Lucy, was asleep beside her, wrapped in an old blanket. Anna had cleaned the edges of her drawings and straightened the letters on her sign. She wanted them to look neat, like something that deserved respect. When the first customers of the morning passed, a security guard from a nearby building walked over. He frowned, tapping his radio. "You cannot sit here again, kid. This is private property." Anna looked up calmly. "I am not begging, sir. I am selling my work. Yesterday, someone bought a painting." The man sighed. "I do not care who bought what. You need to move before my supervisor comes." She nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. "I understand, sir, but could I stay until my sister wakes up? It is cold." The guard hesitated. His radio crackled. He turned away with a muttered, "5 minutes," and walked back to his post. Just then, a shadow fell across the sidewalk. Ethan stood there, holding a paper cup of coffee in one hand and the same painting in the other. The steam from his drink rose into the chill air. Anna blinked in surprise. "You came back," she said quietly. "I did," Ethan replied. "I thought about your painting all night. Lucy stirred at the sound of voices. Anna tucked the blanket around her sister and stood up. "Would you like another one? I drew the city at night this time." She held out a small paper. Its edges rippled from the damp morning air. Ethan studied it. The skyline was darker, but every window glowed with tiny yellow squares. "Why are all the lights on?" he asked. Anna answered simply, "Because nobody should feel left out in the dark." Ethan felt something shift in him again, quiet but undeniable. Around them, people hurried past, the world moving too fast to notice two children and a man standing in the cold. Yet this moment seemed to slow time itself. He crouched beside her. "You know your painting from yesterday," he said. "That building is mine." Anna tilted her head. "You live there?" "I work there," Ethan corrected. "I built it." For a moment, her eyes widened, but not with awe. She simply nodded. "Then you must be busy. Important people are always busy." He almost smiled. "Sometimes too busy," he admitted. Lucy began to cough softly. Anna lifted her sister's head, patting her back. Ethan noticed how the older girl kept her composure steady, protective, refusing to look weak. There was strength in her silence, a kind of quiet pride that no money could buy. He looked at the guard across the street, who was now watching uneasily. "Is he bothering you?" Ethan asked. Anna shook her head. "He is just doing his job." That answer stopped him. Most adults would have complained or blamed someone, but she spoke with understanding, as if she already knew the world was not always cruel on purpose. Ethan stood up. "How long have you been selling your paintings here?" 2 weeks, she said. "Sometimes people buy one. Sometimes they just smile. That is fine too." He nodded slowly. "Where do you go when it rains?" "There is a laundromat down the block. The lady there lets us sit near the dryers if we help sweep the floor." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wanted to ask more but sensed her boundaries. This was not a girl who wanted pity. She wanted dignity. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a folded note and his business card. He placed it gently on her stack of drawings. "If you ever need to reach me, call that number. My office will answer." Anna hesitated. "What would I say?" "Say your name," he replied. "That will be enough." The security guard approached again, clearing his throat. "Sir, this area is not for vendors." Ethan turned toward him, calm but firm. "She is not a vendor. She is an artist." The guard froze, uncertain. Ethan handed him a card. "If anyone questions her again, they can call me directly." The man's eyes widened as he read the name. "Yes, Mr. Hale," he stammered. Anna looked up at Ethan, confused. "You did not have to do that." "I know," he said. "But sometimes the right thing is not about rules. It is about seeing who deserves a chance." She studied his face, then gave a small nod. "Thank you, sir." He smiled faintly. "You called me sir yesterday, too." "That is what polite people say," she answered, half smiling. Ethan chuckled softly and turned to leave. Behind him, the sound of crayons scraping paper returned a soft, steady rhythm against the stone. As he walked toward his car, the city noise swelled again, horns, voices, and the shuffle of countless feet. But through it all, he could still hear her voice, quiet yet certain, painting something inside him he could no longer ignore. That morning, Ethan Hale arrived at his office later than usual. The meeting waited. The world waited. But he paused at the door, holding the drawing in his hand, and realized that for the first time in years, he was thinking not about profit, but about purpose. That evening, the wind carried the scent of rain through the streets. The lamps on Fifth Avenue flickered to life, casting long ribbons of light across the wet pavement. Ethan Hale sat inside his office on the top floor of Hale Systems Tower. The city stretched below him, glowing in shades of silver and gold, but his attention was fixed on the small painting propped against his computer. The crayon colors looked even brighter under the desk lamp. He traced the edges with his eyes, noticing how steady the child's lines were. There was no fear, no hesitation, only certainty. He had spent decades building an empire based on precision, yet this drawing made with wax and courage felt more deliberate than anything in his world. He leaned back in his chair. The silence of the office felt heavier than usual. A week ago, this room had been filled with the sound of deals and phones and confident laughter. Tonight, there was only the soft hum of the air conditioner and the memory of a little girl's voice. "You can decide. Just make sure it is enough for milk." Ethan pressed a hand over his face, trying to shake the thought. He had never been the kind of man to dwell on emotions. Numbers made sense. People rarely did. But the look in Anna's eyes when she said she was not begging, he could not forget it. There was pride in that gaze, the same kind he once had before wealth dulled its edge. A knock at the door broke his thoughts. His assistant, Dana, stepped in. "Mr. Hale, you asked for the employee records from the cleaning department. I found the file you wanted. Angela Brooks. She worked here 5 years ago." Ethan straightened. 5 years? "Yes, sir," Dana said, handing him the folder. "She left to take care of her children after her husband passed away. There was a note about financial hardship, but she never asked for help. I believe the little girl from yesterday could be her daughter." Ethan opened the file. Inside was a faded ID photo of a woman with kind eyes and a tired smile. Angela Brooks. Beneath the photo was a final time card stamped "Resigned." He remembered her vaguely, a quiet woman who cleaned the conference floor at night. He had never known her name until now. He stared at the photograph for a long time. Where did she live? "In the Lower East Side," Dana replied. "A small apartment building near Douglas Street. But the address was marked inactive last year." Ethan nodded slowly. "Thank you, that will be all." When the door closed, he sat motionless. The city lights below shimmered like reflections in water. A quiet guilt began to rise in his chest, guilt for never seeing the people who kept his empire standing. He had built towers, yes, but perhaps he had forgotten to build bridges. The next morning, Ethan arrived early on Fifth Avenue. The air was crisp, and the sky held the soft blue of dawn. The sidewalk where Anna had sat was empty. Only faint chalk marks and bits of paper remained. He waited, checking his watch, pretending he was simply observing the street. After nearly an hour, he saw them. Anna was walking hand in hand with Lucy, carrying a small plastic bag that clinked softly, milk bottles, bread, and a box of crayons. They stopped at the same corner, settling into their familiar spot. Anna spread out her drawings carefully, arranging them in neat rows. Lucy sat beside her, humming quietly. Ethan approached. "Good morning," he said. Anna looked up and smiled. "You came again." "I said I would, did I not?" Ethan replied gently. "I see business is good." She laughed softly. "We sold 2 yesterday. The lady at the bakery gave us cookies too." He crouched to her level, glancing at the new paintings. "You work fast." "I draw every night after Lucy falls asleep," Anna explained. "It helps me not be scared of the dark." He paused, touched by the quiet strength in her voice. "Do you remember your mother's work at Hale Systems?" he asked carefully. Anna hesitated. "She used to clean big halls. She told me once that her floor was so shiny you could see the stars in it." Ethan smiled faintly. "That sounds like something she would be proud of." "She was," Anna said softly. "But she got sick, and we lost the apartment. Now she stays with a friend. I take care of Lucy." Her words were calm, matter of fact, like she had learned not to expect pity. Ethan's throat tightened again. "Would you mind if I visited your mother?" he asked. Anna studied him for a moment. "You are not from social services, right?" He shook his head. "No, just someone who remembers her work." She nodded slowly. "All right. But she gets nervous around strangers. You have to talk softly." "I can do that," he said. A soft smile crossed her face. "Then you can come." Lucy tugged at Anna's sleeve. "Anna, can we draw the big shiny building again?" Anna looked at Ethan. "She means your tower," she said, smiling. Ethan crouched beside Lucy. "How about this time? We draw it together." The child's eyes widened. "You can draw?" He chuckled. "Not well, but I can try." Anna handed him a crayon. "Then make sure you color the windows. They always look brighter that way." He took the crayon carefully, feeling its waxy texture between his fingers. The three of them leaned over the paper, sketching a skyline together, one that looked less like a monument and more like a home. For the first time in years, Ethan laughed without thinking. The sound startled even him. People walking by slowed to watch a billionaire in a suit sitting on the ground beside 2 little girls, coloring with broken crayons. No cameras, no press, just a quiet moment of shared humanity. When they finished, Anna looked at the picture and said, "See? Now every window has light. That means nobody is left out." Ethan nodded. "Nobody should be." The morning sun broke through the clouds, spilling light across the drawing. It glowed softly on the pavement, and for a fleeting second, Ethan felt the warmth of something far greater than success, something that looked a lot like redemption beginning to take shape. The afternoon sun hung low over the city when Ethan followed Anna and Lucy through the narrow streets of the Lower East Side. The traffic noise faded behind them as they turned into an alleyway lined with small apartment buildings. The walls were chipped, and the windows were patched with cardboard. It smelled faintly of detergent and rain. Anna walked with quiet confidence, holding her sister's hand. She looked back every few steps, making sure Ethan kept up. He carried a paper bag filled with groceries and a small carton of milk. The weight was nothing, but the significance of it felt enormous. When they reached the end of the alley, Anna stopped in front of a rusted metal door. A piece of lace curtain hung loosely over the window above. "This is where we stay," she said softly. "It is not really ours, but the lady upstairs lets us use it when it rains." Ethan looked around. The doorway was clean, swept by small hands, and a single potted plant sat on the step, its leaves dusty but alive. He could tell that even in hardship, someone here still cared about order and beauty. Anna pushed the door open. The air inside was warm but heavy with the smell of damp walls. The room was small, barely big enough for 2 mattresses, a folding chair, and a cracked dresser. The light came from a single bulb hanging above a table stacked with drawings, crayons, and a few books. On the far side, a woman lay under a thin blanket. Her hair was streaked with gray, her face pale but calm. She stirred when she heard their voices. "Mama," Anna whispered, "we have a visitor." The woman blinked, her eyes adjusting to the light. "A visitor?" Her voice was faint but kind. Ethan stepped closer and spoke gently. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Brooks. My name is Ethan Hale." Her expression changed slowly from confusion to recognition. "Hale," she murmured. "You are from that building, the one I used to clean." "Yes," he said quietly. "You worked for my company." "I remember now." Angela Brooks smiled faintly. "It has been many years. I never thought I would see anyone from there again." Anna set the groceries on the table and poured a small glass of milk for her sister. Lucy climbed onto the mattress, sipping it carefully. Angela watched with pride and sorrow mixed in her eyes. "I heard you were unwell," Ethan said. "I wanted to see how you are doing." I manage," Angela replied. "Some days are harder than others, but Anna takes good care of us. She is the strong one." Anna blushed and shook her head. "Mama, do not say that." Ethan looked around the room again. Every corner spoke of survival, tidy, organized, dignified despite poverty. On the wall hung a small drawing taped beside the window. It was of a woman and 2 children holding hands under a large building. Above them, in a child's handwriting, it said, "Home someday." He swallowed hard. "Mrs. Brooks, I am sorry," he said quietly. "I should have known what happened after you left. We could have helped." Angela shook her head gently. "You do not owe us anything, Mr. Hale. Life is not cruel by choice. Sometimes it just forgets people for a while." Her words hit him harder than any accusation. He wanted to speak, but she smiled and continued. "Anna never gave up. She draws because she believes pictures can change how people see the world. Maybe that is enough." Anna came to her mother's side, touching her hand. "Mama, remember the man who bought my painting? That was him." Angela turned to Ethan, surprised. "You bought it?" "Yes," he said. "It reminded me of something I had lost." "What was that?" she asked softly. "Perspective," he admitted. The room fell silent, except for Lucy humming softly to herself. The sound was small but warm. Ethan felt something inside him loosen and ache that had been building for years without a name. Angela looked at him for a long moment. "You are a good man, Mr. Hale. You just forgot to see things up close." He nodded slowly. "I think you are right." Anna handed him one of her new drawings. "This is for you," she said. "It is not for sale. It is a gift." He accepted it carefully. The picture showed 3 figures, 2 girls and a tall man standing under a shining building with lights in every window. Above it were the words, "Together now." Ethan's eyes stung, but he smiled. "It is beautiful," he said. "Thank you." Angela rested back on the pillow, her breathing steady. "She always draws hope," she said softly. "Even when there is not much to see." Ethan looked around once more and made a silent promise to himself. No press releases, no cameras, no announcements, just action. He placed his business card on the dresser beside the books. If you need anything, food, medicine, a place to stay, you can call me anytime. That is not charity. It is just what neighbors should do. Angela looked at him with quiet gratitude. Then, thank you, neighbor. As he stepped back outside, the evening air felt different. The city lights were beginning to glow, but they did not seem as cold as before. He turned and saw Anna standing at the door, waving with one hand while holding her sister close with the other. "Good night, Mr. Hale," she called softly. He raised a hand in return. "Good night, Anna. Keep painting." When he reached the street, he looked up at his own tower in the distance. The windows sparkled against the dusk, hundreds of tiny lights flickering like stars. For the first time in years, he realized that some of those lights should belong to people like the Brooks family, people who deserved not just survival, but the simple grace of being seen. As the wind swept through the city, Ethan whispered to himself, nobody should feel left out in the dark. And this time, he meant every word. The next morning, the city woke under a thin layer of fog. The streets glistened from last night's rain, and the sound of early buses echoed between the tall buildings. Ethan Hale stood by the window of his penthouse, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The memory of the small apartment and the quiet dignity of Angela Brooks lingered in his mind like the aftertaste of something bittersweet. He could not stop thinking about the way Anna had handed him the drawing that said, "Together now." It was more than a picture. It was a mirror held up to his own life, a reminder of everything he had once valued and somehow lost in the noise of power and success. He set the cup down, took a deep breath, and made a decision. That afternoon, Ethan called Dana, his assistant, into his office. "I want to arrange something," he said. "A temporary stay for a family in need, quietly. No press, no publicity." Dana raised an eyebrow. "Of course, sir. May I ask which family?" He hesitated for only a second. "The Brooks family, a mother and two daughters." Dana nodded, understanding the tone in his voice that did not invite questions. "I will prepare everything by tonight." Ethan spent the rest of the day distracted. During meetings, his eyes kept drifting toward the framed painting by his desk, the first one he had bought from Anna. He remembered how she had refused to take pity, how she had insisted on value instead of charity. That thought guided his next move. By evening, a black sedan rolled quietly into the alley where the Brooks family lived. Anna looked up from where she was helping her mother sort through drawings. She saw Ethan step out of the car, holding an umbrella against the drizzle. "Mr. Hale," she said in surprise. "You came back again." He smiled faintly. "I made a promise, did I not?" Angela tried to rise from the mattress, but he gestured for her to stay seated. "Please, do not get up. I have something to tell you." Anna looked at him curiously, holding Lucy's hand. "I have arranged a place for you to stay," Ethan said gently. "It is not far from here, but it is safe, warm, and close to a good school. It is a small apartment near the park. The rent is paid for a year." Angela blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Mr. Hale, that is too much." He shook his head. "It is not too much. It is simply fair. You worked hard for my company, and I failed to see you. Let this be a start to fixing that." Anna's eyes widened. "You mean, we can move there? All three of us?" "Yes," he said with a nod. "Tonight, if you would like, my driver will take you." Lucy clapped her small hands together, her face bright with excitement. "Anna, we get to see a park." Anna smiled, but she hesitated. "We cannot take charity, sir. Mama always says we should earn what we get." Ethan crouched to meet her eyes. "This is not charity. You already earned it with your courage, your drawings, and your heart. You reminded me what it means to care. So let us call it what it really is, gratitude." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "You are very kind, Mr. Hale. I do not know how to thank you." He smiled softly. "You already have. You raised a daughter who taught me something I had forgotten." An hour later, the Brooks family packed their few belongings into 2 small suitcases. The rain had stopped, and the city smelled clean and new. Ethan waited by the car, helping Angela into the back seat while Anna and Lucy climbed in beside her. When they arrived at the new apartment, the girls ran from room to room, laughing. The place was modest but bright, with warm wooden floors and wide windows that opened to the sound of trees. Angela stood by the doorway, speechless. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Ethan looked around. "It is just a place to rest. What makes it beautiful is what you will build inside it." "No." Anna walked over, holding something wrapped in paper. "We want you to have this," she said, handing him another drawing. He unwrapped it carefully. It showed a small apartment glowing with yellow light, and 3 figures standing in the window smiling. Ethan stared at the picture, his throat tight. "It is perfect," he said. Anna grinned. "Now you have 2 paintings for your big office." He chuckled quietly. "Yes, but this one might go somewhere else. Maybe on my wall at home." Angela turned toward him. "Mr. Hale, I hope you know that we will never forget this kindness. You gave us back something we had lost hope." Ethan shook his head. "No, Mrs. Brooks, you gave that to me first." As he left the apartment, the sound of the girls' laughter followed him down the hall. It echoed softly, light as bells, the kind of sound that makes even the darkest corners of memory feel bright again. That night, as Ethan drove home, he caught sight of his reflection in the car window. The city lights shimmered behind him, but what stood out most was the small trace of a smile, real and unforced. For the first time in many years, he did not feel like a man running from emptiness. He felt like a man walking towards something better. And far across town, in a small apartment filled with warmth and crayons, 2 sisters sat beside their mother, drawing a picture of a man in a blue suit, standing under a sky filled with light. Anna looked at her mother and whispered, "Do you think he will come back?" Angela smiled gently. "Good people always do." Outside, the rain began again, soft and steady, washing the city clean while 3 small lights glowed behind a window that finally felt like home. The next morning arrived quietly, with sunlight streaming through the windows of the new apartment. The walls glowed pale gold, and for the first time in a long while, the Brooks family woke to silence instead of sirens. The little room smelled faintly of warm bread and soap. Angela stirred first, blinking against the brightness, as if unsure that the night before had been real. Anna was already awake, sitting by the window with her sketchbook open on her knees. She was drawing the trees outside, their leaves glimmering in the early light. Lucy slept beside her, wrapped in the same old blanket, but her small face was peaceful. Angela watched her daughters for a long time before speaking. "Anna," she said softly, "come here." Anna closed her book and went to her mother's side. "Yes, Mama?" Angela brushed a curl of hair from her daughter's forehead. "I do not think I have ever thanked you properly," she said. "You kept us together when I could not. You gave us this." Anna shook her head. "Mr. Hale gave us this, Mama." Angela smiled. "No, sweetheart. He gave us the key, but you opened the door." Before Anna could answer, there was a soft knock at the door. She ran to open it. On the other side stood a woman in a navy skirt and glasses, holding a clipboard and a gentle smile. "Good morning," the woman said. "My name is Dana. Mr. Hale asked me to stop by and make sure everything is working as it should." Angela sat up slowly. "Please, come in." Dana stepped inside, looking around with professional ease. "He wanted me to deliver something," she said, holding out a small envelope. "There are some documents for you, Mrs. Brooks. A medical appointment has been arranged at the clinic downtown. All expenses are already covered." Angela blinked, startled. "He thought of that too?" "Yes," Dana said, smiling. "He mentioned that you have been unwell. He wants to be sure you are comfortable." Angela pressed the envelope to her chest, her eyes shining. "Please tell him thank you. He has done more than enough already." Dana nodded. "He said you would say that." While the 2 women spoke, Anna slipped outside with her sketchbook. She crossed the street to the park where she could see the tall buildings glittering in the distance. The air smelled of grass and rain. She sat on a bench and began to draw again the skyline, the reflections, the faint streaks of sunlight breaking through clouds. A few joggers passed, some smiling as they saw the small girl so focused on her paper. She barely noticed them. In her picture, she added 3 small figures at the bottom, 2 children and a man holding an umbrella. She smiled to herself as she colored the umbrella bright blue. An hour later, she heard someone call her name. Anna. She looked up. It was Ethan, walking toward her across the park path, carrying a cup of hot chocolate and a paper bag. "I thought I might find you here," he said, handing her the cup. "Chocolate with marshmallows. I remember you mentioned you liked that." Her eyes lit up. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." She took a sip and smiled. "You remembered. I try to remember the important things," he said. "Is your mother feeling better?" "She is resting," Anna said. "A lady named Dana came. She brought papers for Mama's doctor." Ethan nodded. "Good, I am glad." He sat beside her on the bench. For a moment, they both watched the people passing by, the joggers, the couples, the children playing by the swings. After a while, Anna turned her sketchbook toward him. "Do you like it?" she asked. He looked closely. "That is my umbrella, is it not?" She giggled. "Yes, it is the one you carried yesterday." He studied the drawing quietly. "It is wonderful," he said. "You always find a way to make things brighter." Anna looked at him seriously. "You make things brighter too, Mr. Hale. Mama says when people do kind things, it makes the world softer. I think that is true." He smiled. "Your mother sounds wise." "She is," Anna said, "but she still worries. She thinks you will forget us when your work gets busy again." Ethan looked down at the paper cup in his hands. "She is wrong," he said quietly. "I do not plan to forget." "Oh," Anna nodded as if she believed him completely. "Then maybe you can come for dinner one day. Mama said she wants to cook real food again when she feels better." He hesitated, touched by the invitation. "I would like that very much," he said. "And maybe you can show me more of your paintings." Her grin widened. "Deal." They sat together for a while longer, sharing the warmth of the quiet morning. When it was time to go, Ethan stood and looked once more at the apartment building across the street. He could see a small curtain fluttering from an open window, sunlight glowing behind it. "I will stop by tomorrow," he said, "just to check in." Anna nodded. "We will be here." As Ethan walked away, the park filled with the sound of children laughing. Anna watched him until he disappeared around the corner, then looked back at her drawing. The blue umbrellas seemed to glow brighter than before. Later that day, as the sun began to set, she returned home. Her mother was resting on the couch, and Lucy was drawing beside her. On the table, the envelope from Mr. Hale lay open beside a new note in his handwriting. It said, "There will always be light for those who choose to see." Anna read it aloud to her mother. Angela smiled, closing her eyes. "He is right," she whispered. "Some people build towers. Others build light." No. Outside, the sky turned the color of gold, and in that small apartment above the park, 3 lights flickered on, steady, hopeful, and bright enough to be seen from the street below. The next week unfolded like a slow sunrise over the city. Every day, the fog lifted a little earlier, and the morning air carried the scent of hope instead of smoke. Ethan Hale kept his word. He stopped by the apartment every few days, never empty-handed, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with art supplies, and sometimes with nothing but time to listen. Angela's health began to improve. The medicine from the clinic was helping, and the warm, steady meals gave her strength. Each morning, she would sit by the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, watching her daughters draw on the small table by the door. She often smiled quietly, as if grateful that silence no longer meant fear. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan arrived carrying something different, a rolled canvas tied with a thin red ribbon. Anna opened the door and looked up at him with wide eyes. "You brought something," she said, her voice curious. He smiled. "Yes, I did. It is not from a store. It is from me." Angela turned from the window. "Mr. Hale, please come in. You are always welcome here." Ethan stepped inside and handed the rolled canvas to Anna. "Go ahead," he said. "Open it." She untied the ribbon carefully and unrolled the canvas on the floor. The painting showed a large glass lobby with marble floors and sunlight pouring through tall windows. At the center of the room stood a young girl holding a paintbrush, looking up at her own reflection in the glass. The title written in gold letters at the bottom read, "The Artist." Anna gasped softly. "This is one of your buildings." It is," Ethan said. but it is also where your paintings will be displayed. I want to set up an exhibition in the main lobby of Hale Systems. We will call it Light Through Her Eyes. It will feature your art and the stories behind it. Angela's hands trembled as she covered her mouth. Mr. Hale, that is... I do not know what to say. Ethan looked at her gently. You do not have to say anything. This is not about business or charity. It is about truth. The world needs to see what I saw in her drawings. Anna's eyes sparkled. People will see my art? Real people? Yes, he said. People who have forgotten what hope looks like. You will remind them. She looked at her mother, then back at him. Can Mama come too? Of course, Ethan said. It will not be complete without her. Angela shook her head in disbelief. I never imagined something like this could happen to us. Ethan smiled. But sometimes, the smallest things make the biggest changes. The rest of the afternoon passed in a soft whirl of laughter and planning. Ethan explained how the exhibition would work, how each painting would have a small card with Anna's words beside it, explaining what she felt when she drew it. Anna listened intently, nodding at every detail, already thinking about what to create next. When he left that evening, the air outside was cool and clear. The streetlights flickered on, one by one, and Ethan felt an unfamiliar lightness in his step. 2 days later, Anna and Angela stood in the vast lobby of Hale Systems Tower. The same floors Angela had once polished, now shone brighter than ever. Large frames lined the walls, filled with Anna's drawing city skylines, children holding hands, sunlight cutting through rain. At the center of it all hung the first painting she ever sold, the Hale Systems Tower glowing gold at the top. A crowd gathered, whispering and pointing. Some were employees, some were guests, and some were strangers drawn in by curiosity. But every face softened as they looked at the art. Anna stood close to her mother, her small hands clutching the hem of Angela's coat. There are so many people, she whispered. Angela smiled, resting a hand on her shoulder. They are here for you, sweetheart. You made them stop and see. Ethan approached from across the room, dressed simply but with an ease that made him seem different, less like a man who owned towers, and more like a man who understood them. Are you ready, Anna? He asked. She nodded. Yes, Mr. Hale. He guided her to the small podium at the front of the lobby. A microphone stood waiting. Anna looked up at it nervously. Ethan crouched beside her. Just speak from your heart, he whispered. That is enough. Anna took a breath and looked at the crowd. Her voice trembled at first, but it grew steadier with each word. My name is Anna Brooks, she said. I started drawing because sometimes the world feels too big and too busy. But when you draw it, you can make it stop and listen. These pictures are about light that belongs to everyone, even when life feels dark. The room was silent except for the faint hum of air vents. People watched, many with tears in their eyes. She continued, My mama says when you do something kind, it makes the world softer. I think she is right. Mr. Hale believed in my drawings when nobody else did. Now I want to help other kids believe in themselves too. Ethan listened, his chest tight with emotion. He had heard countless speeches in his life, but none had ever sounded this true. When she finished, the room erupted into gentle applause, not loud, not forced, but full of warmth. Angela reached for Ethan's hand and squeezed it softly. You did this, she said. He shook his head. No, she did this. That night, as the lights dimmed in the lobby, Ethan stood alone before the painting of the Golden Tower. His reflection shimmered across the glass. For the first time, he saw himself not as the man who built the building, but as the man who finally learned what it meant to fill it with light. Outside, across the city, the skyline glowed against the night, each window a quiet echo of the little girl who once sold her drawings on the street so her sister could have milk. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of Hale Systems Tower, bathing the lobby in soft gold. The art exhibition had only been open for one night, but the news had already begun to spread. Newspapers and online headlines read, Tech Billionaire Sponsors Street Child's Art Show. Ethan Hale sat in his office on the top floor, sipping coffee that had long gone cold, staring at one of the articles on his tablet. He had told the staff there would be no press coverage, but the world had found its way in. People were talking. Some praised the kindness behind the project, while others whispered about hidden motives. Dana knocked lightly on the open door. "Sir, I thought you should see this," she said, placing a printed email on his desk. He glanced down at it. The message came from a journalist he knew well. The headline read, "PR move or redemption story." His jaw tightened. "They will not understand," he said quietly. "Some will," Dana replied gently. "And the rest will, eventually." Ethan nodded, setting the tablet aside. He leaned back in his chair, eyes moving to the small framed drawing that hung beside the window, Anna's first painting of the tower glowing gold. For a moment, he forgot about the noise outside. Downstairs, the exhibition continued. The lobby filled with visitors, students, families, workers from nearby offices. The crowd moved slowly, speaking in hushed tones, as if afraid to disturb the quiet power of the art around them. Anna stood near the entrance with Lucy and Angela, her small hands clasped together. She was wearing a simple blue dress, one Ethan's assistant had brought the day before. It fit her perfectly. Lucy held onto her sister's arm, her eyes wide with wonder at all the people coming to see the drawings. A woman approached Anna with a warm smile. "Did you make all of these?" she asked. Anna nodded shyly. "Yes, ma'am." "They are beautiful," the woman said. "You must be very proud." Anna smiled politely. "I am happy that people see them. I drew them so nobody would feel forgotten." The woman blinked, clearly moved, before thanking her and walking on. Ethan watched from a distance, leaning against one of the marble pillars. He had stayed out of the spotlight, just observing. The way Anna spoke to strangers amazed him, never nervous, never boastful, just calm and sincere. She did not crave attention. She wanted connection. Angela stood beside him quietly. "She has always been like that," she said. "Even when we had nothing, she would give away her last crayon, if it made another child smile." Ethan turned to her. "You must be proud of her." I am," Angela said softly. "But more than proud, I am grateful." She reminded me that kindness can survive anything. A few steps away, Lucy tugged on Anna's sleeve. "Can we show Mr. Hale our new drawing?" Anna looked around, spotting Ethan. "Yes, come on." The two girls walked toward him, Lucy holding a folded piece of paper. She handed it up with both hands. "We made this together," she said. Ethan crouched down to their level. "What is it?" Anna unfolded it carefully. The drawing showed the lobby they stood in, filled with people looking at the art. Near the center was a small figure in a suit standing beside two girls. Over their heads, written in neat letters, were the words, "Thank you for seeing us." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "It is beautiful," he said. "Can I keep it?" Lucy grinned. "Only if you promise to hang it high where everyone can see." "I promise," he said. Just then, a man with a camera approached. "Mr. Hale, can we get a photo?" Ethan frowned slightly. "I thought this was not a press event." The man lowered his voice. "The story has gone viral, sir. Everyone wants to know why a billionaire is working with a child artist." Anna looked up at Ethan, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Why would people be mad about helping?" Ethan hesitated, then smiled gently. "Sometimes people misunderstand good things when they have not seen enough of them." He turned back to the reporter. "No photos today," he said calmly. "This is not about me." The man hesitated but nodded, stepping back. Ethan turned to Anna again. "Would you do me a favor?" She tilted her head. "What kind of favor?" He smiled. "Keep drawing. Keep showing them what kindness looks like. That will explain everything better than any interview ever could." Anna nodded firmly. "I can do that." Later that evening, after the crowd had gone, the lobby fell quiet again. The janitor turned off the last few lights, leaving only the soft glow of the display lamps over the artwork. Ethan stood beside the biggest frame, the painting of the tower. Beside him, Anna yawned, holding Lucy's hand. "Long day?" he asked. "A good one," she said. "I think Mama smiled more today than she has in a long time." He smiled. "Then it was worth it." Anna looked up at the painting, the gold light shimmering across the glass. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, "when people see my drawings, do you think they will remember the girl or the building?" He thought for a moment. "I think they will remember the light." She nodded thoughtfully. "That is all I wanted." Angela approached, wrapping an arm around both girls. "It is time to go home," she said kindly. Say good night, Anna. Anna turned to Ethan. Good night, Mr. Hale. Thank you for today. He smiled, his eyes warm. Good night, Anna. And thank you for reminding me what matters. As they walked away, their reflections shimmered in the polished floor, three small figures beneath the towering glass ceiling, surrounded by color and light. Ethan stood for a long while, watching until they disappeared through the revolving doors. When he finally left the building, he glanced up at the tower one more time. The windows glowed softly against the dark sky, and for the first time, he felt that every one of them was shining for the right reason. The following week, the exhibition continued to draw visitors from all over the city. Hale Systems Tower, once a symbol of wealth and power, had quietly transformed into a place of reflection. The lobby no longer echoed only with the sound of heels and briefcases, but also with children's laughter and the murmur of people discovering beauty in simple drawings. On a quiet Sunday morning, the sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows like a blessing. Ethan Hale stood near the entrance, dressed casually in a gray sweater instead of his usual suit. He preferred coming early, before the crowds arrived, when he could walk among the paintings in peace. Each picture told a story, and every color seemed to remind him of a lesson he had nearly forgotten. As he moved from frame to frame, he noticed something new on the far wall. A small display table had been set up overnight. On it sat a stack of sketchbooks tied with ribbons. A handwritten sign beside them read, "For the Children's Art Fund, every drawing helps another child find their light." Ethan smiled faintly. Anna, he murmured. Sure enough, moments later, he heard the familiar sound of small footsteps behind him. Good morning, Mr. Hale, Anna said cheerfully. She was carrying a box of crayons and wearing her favorite blue dress again. Her little sister Lucy trailed close behind, holding a balloon in one hand and Angela's hand in the other. Good morning, Anna, Ethan said, smiling. I see you have been busy. She nodded proudly. Mama and I made the sign. People said they wanted to help other kids who like to draw, so we decided to make a fund. The money will buy crayons, paper, and paint for kids who cannot afford them. Ethan's expression softened. That is a wonderful idea. Angela smiled as she stood beside them. It was hers, she said. She wanted to make sure no child ever feels invisible again. Ethan crouched to meet Anna's eyes. You have a good heart, he said. Do you know how rare that is? Anna shrugged shyly. Mama says kindness is like art. If you share it, it keeps growing. He nodded. Your mother is a wise woman. Just then, a small group of children entered the lobby, led by a young teacher. They gathered around the paintings with wide eyes. One little boy pointed to the picture of the tower and said, I want to draw like that one day. Anna heard him and smiled. She walked over, opening one of her spare sketchbooks. You can start today, she said, handing him a crayon. The boy hesitated. But I do not know how. Anna knelt beside him. Then draw what you see when you are happy. That is how I started. Ethan watched quietly from a few steps away. The moment was simple, but it carried more power than any speech or donation. This was what change looked like, not in headlines, but in the hands of a child passing hope to another. After the children left, Angela turned to Ethan. You see? She said softly. She has found her way. He smiled. Yes, and she is showing me mine. They walked together through the lobby, admiring the drawings one last time. Near the exit, a large poster had been added by the staff. It showed Anna's picture and a quote from her opening speech. Light belongs to everyone. Ethan stopped in front of it, reading the words again. Light belongs to everyone, he repeated quietly. I think that should be the company's new motto. Angela looked surprised. You would change something that big because of her words? He nodded. Yes, they are better than anything our marketing team ever wrote. She smiled. Then maybe the world is changing after all. That afternoon, a light rain began to fall. The glass walls shimmered as raindrops slid down like tears of joy. The visitors stayed inside longer than usual, wandering slowly, reluctant to leave the warmth of what the place had become. Anna stood near the center, watching the reflections of the people on the polished floor. She could see the tower lights flickering above, blending with the gold and blue colors of her paintings. Mr. Hale, she said softly, tugging at his sleeve. Do you think there will be another show someday? Ethan smiled down at her. I think there will be many. But the next one should not be just yours. It should belong to all the children who draw from the heart. Her eyes lit up. Then I will help them. I know you will, he said. Before they left, Anna took out one last drawing from her bag. It was small and delicate, just a picture of a hand reaching down to lift another hand. Underneath, she had written, "For the one who stopped to see." Ethan accepted it silently, his voice caught in his throat. "I will treasure this," he said finally. When the day ended and the last visitors left, Ethan lingered alone in the lobby. The rain had stopped, and the city outside glowed beneath the streetlights. He looked once more at Anna's painting of the tower, now surrounded by color and life. He thought about the first day he met her, about the cardboard sign and the little voice that had said, "Buy my painting. My little sister needs milk." It seemed like another lifetime, but it was that single sentence that had changed everything. As he turned off the last light and headed for the door, his reflection merged with the images on the glass. The billionaire and the little girl's drawings existed together in that reflection, proof that compassion could live inside even the highest towers. Outside, he paused under the awning and looked up at the skyline. The tower gleamed against the clouds, and somewhere deep in its light, he thought he could still hear the echo of a small voice saying, "Nobody should feel left out in the dark." The morning after the exhibition's second week began like any other, soft light spilling through the glass, quiet footsteps echoing across the marble floor, but something in the air had changed. A whisper had begun to move through the city, and not all of it was kind. Ethan Hale sat in his office, the walls lined with sunlight, and the faint hum of the building beneath him. He had barely taken a sip of his coffee when Dana walked in, holding a folded newspaper. Her expression was hesitant. "Sir," she said softly, "you should see this." He took the paper and unfolded it. The headline was written in bold black letters, "Billionaire exploits child artist for publicity." Ethan's eyes lingered on the words for a long moment before he spoke. "They think it was a publicity stunt." Dana nodded reluctantly. "It has spread quickly online. Some people are saying the whole exhibition was planned to soften your corporate image." He leaned back in his chair, the newspaper trembling slightly in his hands. "They have no idea," he said quietly. "They have no idea what that little girl taught me." Downstairs, Anna and Angela were sitting together near the lobby's corner, helping a few children with crayons and paper. The Children's Art Fund had already begun to grow, and every weekend, small groups of kids came to draw under Anna's guidance. She never spoke about fame or money. She only talked about light, colors, and kindness. But that morning, she noticed that something felt different. People walked by more quickly than usual. A few glanced at her, then whispered behind their hands. Angela noticed too. She gently touched her daughter's shoulder. "Do not pay attention, sweetheart," she said softly. "Sometimes, when people do not understand something good, they try to explain it the wrong way." Anna looked up at her mother with confusion. "Did we do something bad?" "No," Angela said firmly. "You did something brave. The world just needs time to catch up." Still, the unease lingered. That afternoon, Ethan came down from his office. He could feel the shift in the lobby, the tension, the glances. The security guards nodded politely, but their eyes were wary. He found Anna sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping a younger child draw a sundae. When she looked up and saw him, her smile returned for a moment before fading slightly. "Mr. Hale," she said, "are people angry with you because of me?" He crouched down beside her, shaking his head. "No, Anna, people are just confused. Sometimes, they do not believe that kindness can be real, but that is not your fault." Her brow furrowed. "But if they think we did something wrong, maybe I should take the drawings down." Ethan looked at her in surprise. "Take them down? Why?" "Because I do not want people to be mean to you," she said quietly. He felt something twist in his chest. He reached out and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Listen to me, Anna. You did nothing wrong. Do you remember what you told me the first day we met? You said, 'Do not buy my painting because you feel sorry for me. Buy it because you believe in it.' That is what this whole thing is about. Belief, truth, dignity. Nobody can take that away from you." Her eyes softened, but her voice was still small. "Then what should we do?" He smiled faintly. "We do what artists do. We keep creating." Angela watched the exchange quietly, her heart full but cautious. She knew too well how the world could twist stories it did not understand. She stepped forward and said softly, "Mr. Hale, maybe we should pause the exhibition for a few days, just until things calm down." Ethan shook his head. "If we stop now, they win. The whole message of her art, is that even in misunderstanding, light still shines. We will keep going, but we will do it gently, with grace." Later that evening, as the building emptied and the city lights flickered on, Ethan stood by the window of his office again. Below him, the tower's lobby glowed softly, Anna's paintings reflecting like fragments of a dream. He turned as Dana entered once more. "Sir," she said carefully, "the media is asking for a statement. Do you want to respond?" He thought for a long moment, then shook his head. "No statements, no defenses. The truth will speak for itself." Downstairs, Anna sat beside her mother and little sister. Lucy was half asleep in her lap, the crayons scattered around them. Angela looked at her daughter and whispered, "Do you still believe in what you draw?" Anna nodded. "Yes, Mama. Light is still light, even when people close their eyes." Angela smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Then keep drawing, my love. One day, they will see." At that same moment, Ethan pressed his hand against the glass wall of his office, looking out at the dark sky. The city below sparkled like constellations. He thought about how quickly people judged what they did not understand. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet conviction burned stronger than any doubt. He whispered to himself, "We are not doing this for applause. We are doing this for truth." Outside, rain began to fall again, soft, slow drops against the windows, the kind that blurred the city lights into streaks of gold. In the lobby below, Anna continued to draw under the warm lamps, her small hands steady, her face calm. Each stroke of her crayon was a silent act of faith, each color a quiet refusal to let darkness win. And though the city above them buzzed with gossip and noise, inside that tower, the little girl's art spoke louder than all the words written against them. The rain continued through the night, steady and patient, washing the dust off the streets and softening the noise of the city. By morning, the sky cleared into a pale silver blue, and the tower gleamed clean against it. But inside Hale Systems, the tension from the news had not completely faded. Ethan Hale arrived early, carrying the same calm he had promised himself to keep. He knew public opinion would change again, as it always did, but one truth stayed with him: the Brooks family deserved peace, not chaos. He would protect that at all costs. Downstairs in the lobby, Anna was already there, arranging new drawings on the small display table near the center. She hummed softly while Lucy sat cross-legged beside her. Coloring a paper sundae, Angela sat a few steps away, her breathing slower but stronger than before. Her face carried more color now, and though she still moved carefully, her eyes were brighter. When she saw Ethan, she smiled. "You came early today, Mr. Hale." He smiled back. "I could not sleep. The world has a lot of noise lately. I wanted to start my day somewhere quieter." Angela nodded. "Here has become that place, thanks to you." "One." Ethan shook his head. "Thanks to her," he said, glancing at Anna. A few moments later, Dana appeared at the far end of the lobby, holding a folder. "Mr. Hale, the documents you asked for are ready," she said, her tone formal but kind. Ethan took the folder, opened it briefly, then looked up at Angela. "I thought it was time I told you something," he said. Angela raised her eyebrows slightly. "What is that?" He hesitated, his voice softer than usual. "I looked into our company records from the year you left Hale Systems. I wanted to understand why we failed to help you when you needed it most." Angela looked down, uneasy. "You did not have to do that." "I did," Ethan replied firmly, "because what I found was not fair." He opened the folder and held out a sheet. "You were dismissed not because of performance, as the record said. You were dismissed because a manager decided children did not belong near the offices. He reported you for bringing Anna with you once during your night shift." Angela froze. "I brought her that one time because our neighbor could not watch her. I kept her in the break room with a book. She did not bother anyone." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I know. I found the security footage from that night. She was sitting quietly beside a vending machine, drawing while you cleaned the hall. The report was exaggerated, and I signed it without reading the details." Uh, Angela stared at him, speechless. He continued, "It was my responsibility. You lost your job because I did not care enough to look closer. And that is something I will never forget." Angela took a slow breath, her voice trembling slightly. "You do not owe me anything now, Mr. Hale. What is done, is done." He shook his head. "No, Mrs. Brooks. What is done can still be mended." Anna had stopped drawing and was listening quietly. She looked between her mother and Ethan, her young face filled with thought. "So that is why Mama cried that night," she said softly. Angela reached for her daughter's hand. "Yes, sweetheart, that was a hard night, but it brought us here." Ethan nodded. "And that is why I will make sure this never happens again, not to anyone who works for me. I am creating a new policy. Every employee will have access to childcare support. No parent should lose their job for loving their child." Angela blinked back tears. "You mean that?" "Completely," he said. "I learned from you, and from Anna, that strength does not come from power. It comes from compassion. That lesson will stay with me." For a moment, the lobby was silent except for the hum of the lights above. Lucy looked up, her voice small but sure. "So, now Mama can paint too?" Angela laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "Maybe one day, Lucy." Ethan smiled. "Why not today? I can bring supplies. We can make this a family of artists." Anna grinned. "Then we will need a lot of color." He chuckled. "Color is something this place could use more of." Later that afternoon, Ethan gathered his board of directors in the main conference room. The walls were lined with glass, and through them, the exhibition in the lobby could be seen glowing softly. He spoke plainly, without his usual corporate precision. 5 years ago, I signed a dismissal that changed a family's life for the worse," he said. "That mistake taught me something no business class ever could, that success without humanity is failure in disguise. From today on, Hale Systems will invest in programs for working parents and education for underprivileged children. We will call it the Second Chance Initiative." His executives exchanged glances, surprised but respectful. One of them finally said, "Sir, that will change our structure completely." Ethan nodded. "Good. Then we are finally changing in the right direction." When the meeting ended, he went back down to the lobby. The sun had begun to set, casting orange and gold across the glass. Angela sat by the window, Lucy asleep beside her, while Anna finished another drawing, a picture of the tower, but this time surrounded by trees and people smiling beneath it. Ethan approached quietly. "That is beautiful," he said. Anna looked up. "It is called a better place. Mama said towers are not bad if they protect the people below them." He smiled. "Your mother is right again." As the evening deepened, the city lights flickered on one by one. Ethan stood beside the little family and watched the skyline change. In that quiet moment, surrounded by warmth and forgiveness, he finally felt what he had been chasing for years, a sense of peace that no amount of money could ever buy. And somewhere deep inside him, he knew this was not just redemption, it was renewal. That night, long after the lights of Hale Systems Tower dimmed and the streets emptied, Ethan Hale sat alone in his office. The city below glittered in silver and gold, but his gaze was not on the skyline. His eyes were fixed on an old photograph he had found in a forgotten drawer. It showed him at 20 years old, standing in front of a small grocery store, holding a box of newspapers. His hair was windblown, his face tired but full of fire. He had grown up with nothing. His father had been a mechanic, his mother a school aide. They had struggled every month to pay bills, and there had been nights when dinner was just bread and milk. He had sworn to himself then that he would never be poor again, but looking at the photo now, Ethan realized that in his chase for success, he had become someone his younger self might not even recognize. He set the picture down and leaned back, listening to the soft hum of the city. The sound reminded him of the Brooks family's apartment, the quiet rhythm of Angela's breathing, the laughter of the girls, the scratch of Anna's crayons against paper. It was a different kind of wealth, one he had ignored for far too long. The next morning, the tower lobby was busy again. People moved through the exhibition, their footsteps echoing softly. Anna stood at her usual corner table, helping a few children color. She had begun to carry herself differently now, not proud, but confident, as if she understood her place in the world. Ethan arrived quietly and stood for a moment watching her. He could see pieces of himself in her persistence, the same stubborn determination he once had, but hers was guided by kindness instead of ambition. "Good morning, Mr. Hale," she said brightly when she noticed him. "Good morning, Anna," he replied. "You seem busy." "I am," she said with a grin. "The little ones wanted to draw the tower again, but this time I told them to make it full of people, not just windows." He smiled. "That is exactly how it should be." Angela walked over, her step steady. She had color in her cheeks again, and her eyes were full of calm. "Mr. Hale," she said warmly, "I heard about your meeting with the company board, the Second Chance Initiative. That is quite something." Ethan nodded. "It is just the beginning. I want this place to mean more than contracts and profits. I want it to mean people." Angela's voice softened. "Then you are already succeeding." For a moment, the three of them stood together, framed by sunlight pouring through the windows. The moment was quiet, but powerful, a kind of balance that felt both fragile and eternal. Later that afternoon, Ethan drove to the neighborhood where he had grown up. The streets were narrower than he remembered, the buildings older, but the smell of fresh bread from the corner bakery was the same. He parked his car and walked the few blocks to his childhood home. The house was small and worn, its paint faded, but it still stood. An elderly neighbor recognized him from the gate. "Ethan Hale," she said, surprised. "I have not seen you here in 20 years. He smiled faintly. "I thought it was time to come back." "May." They spoke for a while about the old days, about his parents, about the life he had left behind. When he finally turned to leave, the woman said, "You did well for yourself, Ethan. Your father would be proud." He paused and looked down the quiet street. "I hope so," he said softly. "But I think he would tell me to keep earning pride the right way." That evening, Ethan returned to the tower with a new idea forming in his mind. He found Anna still there, packing her art supplies into a small box. "You are still here," he said. She smiled. "I like the quiet after everyone leaves. The light looks different then." He nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think people can change, Anna?" She tilted her head. "Of course. Trees change every season, but they are still trees. People change too, but they can still be good." Her answer struck him deeply. "That is very wise. It is something Mama says," she replied simply. He smiled, realizing how much wisdom this small family had given him. "Anna, I am thinking about creating something new, a place where children like you can come to learn, draw, and feel safe. Not a charity, but a real program with teachers, mentors, and art supplies. Would you like to help me design it?" Her eyes widened. "You mean like a school?" "Yes," he said, "a school of light, a place where art meets heart." Anna's face broke into a bright smile. "That sounds beautiful. Can we teach them to draw hope?" Ethan nodded. "That will be the first lesson." When Angela heard about the idea later that night, she was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You are building more than a tower now. You are building a bridge." Ethan looked at her with gratitude. "Maybe this is what I should have been building all along." Outside, the city glowed in the soft amber of sunset. The reflection of Hale Systems' tower stretched across the glass buildings nearby, golden against the fading sky. Inside, Anna packed her crayons and looked up at the man who had once been a stranger and was now something closer to family. "Mr. Hale," she said quietly, "you found your light again." He smiled gently. "No, Anna, you gave it back to me." As they stepped outside together, the wind carried the scent of rain and new beginnings. The skyline above them gleamed like a promise kept, and for the first time in years, Ethan Hale felt that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The following month brought a steady rhythm of change that moved quietly through the lives of everyone connected to Hale Systems. The air inside the tower felt lighter now. What had once been a place of business and silence was slowly becoming a place of voices, laughter, and color. The new program, the School of Light, had officially begun. What started as an idea born from a little girl's courage was now taking shape inside one of the unused floors of the tower. The space that once held silent cubicles was transformed into long rows of easels, shelves filled with crayons, watercolors, and sketchbooks. The walls were covered with the first paintings made by the children who came from neighborhoods across the city. Ethan Hale walked through the bright hallway that morning, listening to the chatter of children and the sound of brushes moving against paper. It was the kind of noise he had never thought he would hear in his own building. Near the front of the room, Anna sat surrounded by a group of younger kids, showing them how to mix colors. Lucy was beside her, pressing hard on a crayon until it almost broke, determined to make her son the brightest on the page. Angela sat near the back, helping the volunteers organize supplies, her quiet presence grounding the energy in the room. When Ethan entered, Anna looked up with a wide smile. "Mr. Hale, look, we made a whole wall of light." He walked over and stopped in front of a large mural that stretched across the far wall. It showed a city skyline glowing under a sunrise, but this time, instead of gray towers, every building was painted in shades of blue, yellow, and orange. At the bottom of the mural, dozens of handprints were pressed into the paint, small, colorful marks of every child who had helped create it. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice low. "It is beautiful," he said. "You have turned this place into something sacred." Anna grinned. Everyone helped. "Even Lucy's handprint is up there." Lucy raised her little hand proudly. "That yellow one is mine." Ethan laughed softly. "It is perfect." Angela approached quietly, her eyes full of warmth. "You kept your promise," she said. "You said this tower would hold people, not just power." Ethan smiled. "And I could not have done it without you." Angela shook her head. "You could have chosen to forget us after that day on the street, but you did not. That is what makes this different." Before Ethan could respond, a soft chime echoed through the hallway, the bell that marked the start of the first official class. The children hurried to their seats, their excitement filling the air like music. Anna took her place at the front beside a teacher named Mrs. Green, a kind woman with gray hair tied back in a bun. Mrs. Green began the lesson by asking the children a question. "What is light to you?" One child said, "The Sunday." Another said, "A lamp." A third whispered, "Hope." When it was Anna's turn, she thought for a moment before answering. "Light is what happens when someone decides to see." Ethan stood at the back of the room, his eyes glistening. The sentence echoed through him like a prayer. He could not have said it better himself. Later that afternoon, when the children had gone home and the building grew quiet again, Ethan found Anna sitting alone by the window, sketching something new. The sky outside had turned to gold, and the glow touched her hair, making her look like she carried her own light. "What are you drawing now?" he asked. She looked up, smiling. "It is a picture of the first day of the School of Light. See?" She turned the page toward him. There were tiny figures of children with their hands raised, paint on their clothes, and a man standing in the back of the room, smiling quietly. He recognized himself immediately. "You even got my tired face right," he teased. She giggled. "You do not look tired. You look peaceful." He paused, caught off guard by her honesty. "Peaceful," he repeated. "That is a word I have not heard in a long time." Angela joined them a few minutes later, holding a small box. "Anna wanted you to have this," she said, placing it on the table. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside was a handmade keychain, a simple wooden shape carved into the outline of a sundae. The paint was uneven, but it was bright yellow and carried a small engraving that read, "Light for All." Anna smiled shyly. "So, you do not forget." He looked at her, deeply moved. "I could never forget, Anna." As evening fell, the lights inside the tower began to glow one by one. The once cold building now felt alive. Down the hall, the sound of Angela humming a lullaby floated softly, and Lucy's laughter echoed faintly from the next room. Ethan walked to the large window and looked out over the city. From this height, the streets shimmered like rivers of light, stretching endlessly toward the horizon. He turned to Anna and said quietly, "Do you know what you have done?" She shook her head. "What?" "You have changed the meaning of this tower forever." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "Maybe the tower was just waiting for someone to notice." He smiled. "Maybe you are right." Outside, the sky deepened into twilight, and the reflection of the tower glowed softly against the darkening clouds. Inside, the lights from the art room shone like lanterns, small, steady, and full of life. And as the last of the day faded, Ethan Hale realized that what had begun as a single act of kindness had become something far greater, a living proof that compassion could rebuild what ambition had once broken. The city that had once known him as a billionaire now knew him for something better. He had become the man who believed that light, when shared, never runs out. The following morning began with soft light streaming through the wide glass windows of the School of Light. The tower hummed with the gentle rhythm of a new day. The smell of fresh paint and coffee filled the air as volunteers prepared for another full session of children arriving from across the city. Ethan Hale walked down the hallway carrying a box of new supplies. His steps were steady, and there was a calm smile on his face. It had been weeks since he had felt this alive. Every day now had a sense of purpose that no boardroom ever gave him. When he reached the art room, he paused at the doorway. Inside, Anna and Lucy were already setting up the tables. Lucy stood on tiptoe to reach the stack of paper rolls, while Anna carefully arranged cups of water beside each set of brushes. Angela was near the back, humming softly as she cleaned the windows. Ethan cleared his throat playfully. "Good morning, my artists." Anna looked up with a grin. "Good morning, Mr. Hale. You are early again." He chuckled. "I like to start my day where the light begins." Angela smiled from across the room. "Then you are in the right place." As the first group of children entered, their laughter filled the space. Some of them came from schools nearby, others from shelters, but here, they all carried the same spark. Each child took a seat, eager to create something new. Mrs. Green, the teacher, greeted them warmly. "Today," she said, "we are going to paint something special, something that shows what makes each of you strong." The children exchanged excited looks. Anna took her place at the front with Mrs. Green, helping to hand out paints. Ethan moved quietly around the room, assisting wherever he could. One small boy with dark curls hesitated over his paper, staring at the blank page. Ethan crouched beside him. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gently. The boy looked up, unsure. "I want to draw my dad," he said softly, "but he is far away. I do not remember his face very well." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then maybe you can draw how he made you feel. Sometimes feelings tell the truth better than faces." The boy thought about it, then began to paint a swirl of colors, warm and bright. Ethan smiled and moved on, but that small moment stayed with him. Meanwhile, Anna walked among the children, offering advice. "Do not worry if the lines are not straight," she told one girl. "Art is not about being perfect. It is about being honest." Angela watched her daughter proudly. There was something powerful about the way Anna spoke, kind, yet certain, like someone twice her age. She turned to Ethan, who had stopped beside her. "You see what you have started," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No, Mrs. Brooks. This is what she started. I only followed her lead." As the morning went on, the room filled with color. Sunsets, hearts, people, and dreams covered the tables. When the final bell rang for lunch, the children left their paintings to dry and ran to the cafeteria downstairs. Anna stayed behind, walking slowly along the rows of artwork. She stopped in front of the boys painting the one who had missed his father. The colors had formed into a glowing circle with lines reaching outward like rays. "It looked like the Sunday," she smiled softly. "That is what hope looks like," she said to herself. Ethan overheard her. "You are right," he said, "and maybe that is what all of this is, hope painted in 1,000 ways." Anna turned to him. "Do you think hope can change people?" He met her gaze thoughtfully. "I think it already has. It changed me." That afternoon, as the children prepared to leave, Ethan stood by the door to say goodbye to each of them. Some handed him small drawings, others simply waved with shy smiles. The boy with the sun painting looked up at him and said, "Thank you, sir. I think my dad would like this." "Oh," Ethan knelt beside him. "I am sure he would," he said warmly. "And I like it too." After everyone had gone, the room grew quiet again. Angela began tidying the brushes while Lucy fell asleep on a chair, her little hands still stained with blue paint. Anna sat beside Ethan by the window. The late afternoon sun painted the walls gold. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied. "Why do you still work upstairs in your big office? You could just stay here all day." He laughed quietly. "Because even towers need caretakers, Anna. My work upstairs keeps the lights on down here." She thought about that, then nodded. "Then promise me something." "What is that?" he asked. "Promise me you will never let this light go out." He looked out the window where the city glowed beneath the setting Sunday. "I promise," he said. "As long as I live, this light will stay." "Oh," Angela overheard from across the room and smiled. Then the world just got a little brighter. As the sky deepened into shades of orange and rose, Ethan stood and looked once more at the wall of handprints. Dozens of tiny marks, different colors and sizes, all pressed together into something whole. He whispered to himself, "This is what legacy looks like." Outside, the city began to light up one window at a time. And inside that tower, on the 14th floor, a small girl with paint on her hands and a heart full of courage had unknowingly become the symbol of something much greater, a reminder that sometimes the smallest voice can build the largest light. The next few weeks passed with a quiet rhythm that felt almost like music. Every morning, the elevators of Hale Systems opened to the sound of children's laughter and the rustle of sketch paper. The once cold tower had become a place of warmth, where paint stained the walls more beautifully than glass ever could. Ethan Hale began spending most of his mornings at the School of Light before heading upstairs for meetings. He no longer carried the stiffness of a man guarding his empire. Instead, he carried a calm confidence, the kind that comes when purpose replaces pride. One Thursday morning, the air smelled faintly of rain. The windows fogged with soft mist as the children arrived, shaking off their umbrellas and chattering excitedly. Ethan stood near the door, greeting each of them by name. He had learned every name, something his younger, busier self would never have imagined doing. When Anna and Lucy arrived, the room seemed to brighten even more. Anna wore her favorite blue sweater with tiny stars stitched on the sleeves. Lucy carried a jar of dandelions she had picked from the park, holding them carefully so they would not lose their seeds. "Good morning, Mr. Hale," Anna said with her usual cheer. "Good morning, my little artists," he replied warmly. "Are those flowers for decoration?" Lucy shook her head, her curls bouncing. "They are wishes. If you blow on them, they make things come true." Ethan chuckled. "Then I will save mine for something important." Zir. Angela entered behind them, carrying a folder of sketches. Her steps were steady, her posture strong again. "Mr. Hale," she said, "Anna has been working on a new painting for the lobby. She wants it to be a gift for everyone who visits." Ethan's eyebrows rose in pleasant surprise. "Is that so? May I see it?" Anna hesitated, then nodded shyly. She opened the folder and pulled out a large sheet. The painting showed the tower surrounded by dozens of people, men, women, and children, each holding a candle. The light from their hands stretched upward, merging into a single golden beam that reached the sky. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, were the words, "It takes many hearts to make one light." Ethan stared at it for a long time, unable to speak. "Anna," he said finally, his voice low, "this is not just art, this is truth." She smiled softly. "Mama helped me with the words." Angela nodded modestly. She wanted it to say what this place feels like. Ethan looked down at the picture again. "We will frame it and hang it at the entrance. Everyone who walks in should see this first." Anna's eyes brightened. "Really? Really," he said. "That is a promise." As the day went on, the tower filled with visitors. Journalists, parents, and company employees stopped by the art floor to see the transformation that had captured the city's attention. The controversy that once shadowed the exhibition had faded into admiration. People no longer whispered about motives, they spoke about miracles. Midway through the afternoon, Mrs. Green announced that the children would be painting murals outside the tower for a new community project. Ethan approved instantly. The idea of color spilling beyond the walls made him smile. Later that day, as the children worked on their outdoor murals, the drizzle returned. But instead of stopping, they laughed and painted through it, their small hands leaving streaks of color across the wet pavement. The rain mixed with paint, creating beautiful, unexpected swirls. Anna looked up at Ethan through the drizzle. "It looks like the sky is painting with us," she said. He laughed softly. "Maybe it is." Angela stood nearby under an umbrella, watching with quiet joy. "You know," she said, turning to Ethan, "there was a time when I could not even afford an umbrella, and now I am standing here watching my daughters change a city." He nodded. "You earned every bit of this moment, Mrs. Brooks. You never gave up." The rain slowed, then stopped completely. When the sun broke through, the wet pavement glistened with color, an accidental rainbow of paint and reflection. People passing by paused to take pictures. The murals were imperfect, but they were alive. Lucy ran up to Ethan, holding one of her dandelions. "It is time for your wish," she said seriously. He crouched down to meet her gaze. "All right, what should I wish for?" She thought for a moment. "Wish that people keep being kind even when it is hard." He smiled, touched by her innocence. "That is the best wish I have ever heard." He blew softly, sending the white seeds drifting into the sunlight. That evening, when the children had gone home, Ethan stood alone in the lobby. The new painting, the one Anna had made, hung proudly at the entrance. The golden beam in the picture seemed to glow under the lobby lights. Angela approached quietly. "She will sleep well tonight. She said this is the happiest she has ever been." He smiled faintly. "And you?" Angela looked at the painting. "For the first time in years, I feel safe. That is something I did not think I would ever say." He nodded slowly. "Then we are both healing." As the night deepened, the tower stood illuminated, not by wealth or power, but by the lives it sheltered. From his office window above, Ethan could see the street where Anna and her sister had once sold drawings for milk. It looked different now, touched by something invisible but lasting hope. He whispered to himself. It started with one act of courage. In the quiet glow of that moment, he understood that legacy was not about buildings or money. It was about the light you left behind in others. And somewhere in the distance, as the wind carried the faint scent of rain, a little girl's laughter echoed through the tower, soft but strong enough to outlast the dark. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of morning that made the city seem brand new. Sunlight spilled across the tower's glass walls and reflected into the art floor where the school of light had found its rhythm. The smell of fresh paint lingered in the air, mixed with the faint sweetness of the muffins Angela had baked for the children. Ethan Hale arrived early, carrying 2 large boxes filled with new brushes and paints. As he stepped off the elevator, he could already hear the soft sound of children's voices echoing through the hallways. He smiled to himself. It no longer felt like an office building, it felt like a living heart. Anna was the first to notice him. She was standing on a stool, pinning her latest drawing to the wall. "Mr. Hale," she called, her voice bright. "You are here early again." He smiled. "I could not stay away. I thought you might need these." He lifted the boxes slightly. Anna's eyes widened. "New supplies?" "Only the best," he said, setting them down on the nearest table. "You and your classmates have already used up half the last shipment." Angela came over, wiping her hands on a cloth. "She has been drawing every night before bed," she said fondly. "Sometimes she forgets to eat dinner." Anna blushed. "I was practicing. Mrs. Green said my lines are getting steadier." Ethan nodded. "They are. You are growing into your gift." The other children began to gather around, curious about the new supplies. There was laughter and chatter as they unpacked the paints. Lucy squealed when she found a box of glitter. "Can I use this on everything?" she asked. Ethan chuckled. "Within reason, Miss Lucy." The day unfolded gently. Mrs. Green led a class about painting emotions. She asked each child to close their eyes and think about what happiness looked like to them. Some painted bright skies, others drew families, and one boy drew a simple loaf of bread because, as he said shyly, "It smells like home." When it was Anna's turn, she painted something that made everyone pause. On her canvas, she drew a hand reaching down from a tall building to help a smaller hand rise. Around them, golden light filled the space, spreading outward until the entire page glowed. Mrs. Green studied it for a moment. "Anna," she said softly, "what does this painting mean to you?" Anna looked at it thoughtfully. "It means that sometimes the world is tall and scary, but one kind hand can lift you up high enough to see the light." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. He recognized the image immediately. It was him and her. But this time, it was not about power or charity. It was about connection. Angela placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You see why I say she has an old soul," she whispered. He nodded silently, unable to find words. By afternoon, the children finished their projects and began cleaning up. Outside, the sky had turned soft gray, and the wind hinted at more rain. Ethan walked with Anna and Angela to the small cafe across the street. It had become their usual place, a quiet spot where they could talk and laugh without cameras or crowds. The waitress greeted them warmly. "The usual?" she asked. "Yes, please," Angela said. "Hot cocoa for the girls, and black coffee for Mr. Hale." As they sat down, Ethan glanced out the window. "You know," he said, "this cafe used to be where I came for business meetings. I never noticed how beautiful it is until now." Angela smiled. "Sometimes it takes slowing down to really see." Anna stirred her cocoa with a spoon. "Mr. Hale," she asked, "when did you start liking art?" He smiled faintly. "When I met a little girl who sold a drawing to buy milk." Anna's cheeks turned pink. "That was a long time ago." "Not so long," he said softly. "Some moments last forever." For a while, they talked about light, color, and simple things. But beneath their laughter, something deeper hung in the air, a quiet understanding that they were no longer strangers tied by circumstance. They were family, connected by choice. When they left the cafe, the first drops of rain began to fall. Anna tilted her head back, letting the cool drops land on her face. "I love rain," she said. "It makes the world shiny." Ethan opened his umbrella, holding it above her and Lucy. "It also makes the world quiet enough to hear yourself think," he added. Angela laughed softly. "You are starting to sound like an artist, Mr. Hale." "Maybe I am learning from the best," he replied. Back inside the tower, the lights reflected on the wet floor, casting golden ripples across the lobby. The painting Anna had made, the one with the golden beam of light, seemed to glow even brighter that evening. As Angela gathered their things, Anna ran ahead to the mural wall where the children had left their handprints. She placed her small palm over one of them and whispered something softly. Ethan approached. "What did you say?" "I said thank you," she replied simply. "For what?" he asked. "For not giving up," she said, her voice steady. "Most people stop when things get hard, but you kept going." He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Maybe I kept going because I finally had a reason to." Angela watched them from across the room, her heart full. The rain outside grew heavier, but inside, everything felt bright and still. That night, after everyone had gone home, Ethan stood in the empty art room. He walked slowly among the rows of easels, the scent of paint lingering in the air. He stopped in front of Anna's canvas, the one with the reaching hands, and touched the edge of the frame gently. He whispered, "One kind hand can change everything." Outside, lightning flashed once, lighting the tower in silver. For a moment, the reflection in the glass showed two figures, a man and a little girl standing side by side, their outlines framed in gold. And though the city moved endlessly below, inside that tower, time seemed to hold still, cradling the quiet miracle that had turned a chance meeting into a legacy of light. The next morning, a soft wind moved through the streets of the city. The rain had stopped during the night, leaving the pavement gleaming like polished glass. Hale Systems Tower stood tall under the pale sunlight, its windows reflecting gold and silver hues. Inside, on the 14th floor, the School of Light began another day that felt like a new chapter for everyone who walked through its doors. Ethan Hale arrived earlier than usual. He carried 2 paper cups of coffee and a bag of warm muffins from the cafe across the street. When he stepped out of the elevator, the scent of paint and laughter filled the air. It had become his favorite sound. Angela was already there, arranging art supplies on the tables. "You are spoiling us, Mr. Hale," she said with a smile as he handed her one of the cups. "I would call it fair trade," he replied. "You keep this place running. The least I can do is bring breakfast." She laughed softly. "You sound less like a businessman every day." He smiled back. "That might be the best compliment I have heard in years." At the far end of the room, Anna and Lucy were kneeling beside a large piece of paper spread across the floor. They were sketching something, big lines that curved like clouds, shapes that hinted at a story. Ethan crouched beside them. "What are you two creating this time?" Anna looked up, eyes bright. "A mural for the hospital near here," she said. "They asked if we could make something for the children's ward. We are drawing the city in colors that make it look happy." Ethan's chest tightened with quiet pride. "That is a beautiful idea," he said. "Do you need help?" Lucy shook her head seriously. "We are almost done with the sky. You can help paint the trees when it is time." He laughed. "Then I will wait for my turn." As the morning went on, more children arrived, their laughter filling the room. The floor became a whirl of colors, paintbrushes, and stories told through drawings. Every wall in the space seemed alive with motion and meaning. Around noon, Mrs. Green gathered the students for a short break. Ethan and Angela stood by the window watching them. Below, The city stretched out busy and endless, but somehow softer now. Angela spoke quietly. When I first cleaned this building, I never thought I would see this view again. Back then, I used to wonder what it looked like from your office. Now I think this floor is better. Ethan nodded, his voice low. It is. I think this is where the real work happens. A moment later, Anna came running toward them, holding something small and colorful. Mr. Hale, look, she said, handing him a folded paper. He unfolded it carefully. Inside was a simple drawing, the tower surrounded by dozens of stars, and in the middle, a figure of a man with a small child holding his hand. Above it, in careful handwriting, she had written, "The man who built the sky but learned to see the ground." Ethan's breath caught. He looked at her, touched beyond words. "Anna," he said softly, "you have no idea how much this means to me." She smiled shyly. "It is true, though. You used to look at clouds, but now you look at people." He chuckled quietly. "Then I will keep doing that." The afternoon brought visitors from the hospital to collect the mural. 2 nurses and a doctor entered the room, smiling at the children's work. They praised Anna and her friends for their creativity, promising that the art would brighten the hospital walls for years to come. When the mural was carefully rolled up and carried away, the children clapped. Lucy waved after it as if sending off something sacred. "Goodbye, painting," she said. "Make people smile." That evening, after the students had gone, Ethan lingered behind with Angela and Anna. The 3 of them walked through the now quiet floor, the smell of paint still fresh. The golden light of sunset poured through the windows, painting everything in warmth. Angela leaned against a table, tired but peaceful. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had walked past her that first day?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at Anna, who was now organizing crayons into neat rows. "I think about it often," he said, "and every time, I am grateful I did not." Angela smiled faintly. "That one choice changed everything." "It did," he said. "It changed me." He walked over to the window and gazed out at the city. Below, he could see the faint outlines of the children's mural being carefully loaded into a van. He imagined it hanging in the hospital, brightening rooms for those who needed hope the most. Anna joined him by the window. "Do you think the people in the hospital will feel happy when they see it?" she asked. "I think they will feel loved," he said. She nodded. "That is what I wanted." Angela looked at them both, the billionaire who had learned to listen, and the child who had taught him how. For the first time in years, she felt that the world was not such a cruel place after all. As they turned to leave, the last rays of sunlight stretched through the glass, touching the painting of the golden tower that hung near the door. It shimmered, reflecting softly against the walls. Ethan paused, his hand resting on the frame. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think light came from wealth or power, but it does not. It comes from hearts like yours, Anna." Anna smiled, her eyes bright. "Then we will keep sharing it." When they stepped outside, the sky above the city glowed in pink and amber. The tower's reflection stretched across the wet pavement, tall and steady, a reminder of everything they had built together, not from money, but from kindness. And as the evening breeze moved gently through the streets, it carried with it the laughter of a child, the sound of forgiveness, and the promise that light, once shared, can never be lost. The next few days brought a calm warmth that settled gently over the city. The hospital had unveiled the children's mural, and pictures of it began to spread quietly online. People from every corner of the city shared it with captions that read, "Hope painted by small hands." No one knew that the mural had come from the tower of one of the wealthiest men in the country, and that was exactly how Ethan Hale wanted it. He sat in his office early one morning, sunlight falling across the framed painting Anna had given him. It hung just above his desk, the tower bathed in gold light. Whenever he looked at it, his heartbeat slowed. He no longer saw numbers and deadlines when he came to work. He saw purpose. Dana, his assistant, entered carrying a folder. "Good morning, Mr. Hale," she said. "The quarterly reports are ready, and there is something else I thought you should see." She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter with a child's uneven handwriting. It read, "Dear Mr. Hale, thank you for letting us paint for the hospital. I was scared before my surgery, but when I saw our mural, I was not scared anymore. It made me feel brave. Love, Lily. Ethan read the note twice, then closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the city outside seemed clearer, as if the light had sharpened. Dana, he said quietly, let us frame this and hang it in the art floor. It belongs there. She smiled. Of course, sir. Downstairs, the School of Light was buzzing with activity. Angela was helping Mrs. Green prepare for the next week's art showcase. It would be the first time the children displayed their work publicly outside the tower. Anna was in the corner, surrounded by classmates, painting something with deep concentration. Lucy sat beside her, humming a song while coloring a bright yellow bird. When Ethan entered, the children greeted him with smiles and waves. He made his way toward Anna's table. What are you working on today? He asked. She did not look up right away. It is a secret, she said playfully, but you can see when it is done. He chuckled. All right, I will be patient. Angela walked over, wiping her hands on a towel. She has been painting that same canvas for 3 days straight, she said softly. She says it has to be perfect. Ethan smiled. I believe her. Everything she does carries her heart. By afternoon, the room filled with chatter as parents arrived to pick up their children. The sun dipped lower, and the golden light spilled across the walls, making the wet paint on the canvases shimmer. Ethan stayed until the last family left, helping Angela lock up the supplies. As they prepared to leave, he noticed Anna still by her easel, finishing the final details of her mysterious painting. You are still working? He asked gently. She nodded. Almost done. He stepped closer, and when she turned the canvas toward him, he froze. It was a painting of the city, but not as it really looked. The skyscrapers were surrounded by waves of color that flowed from the streets upward, as if every building was made of light. At the center stood the Hail Systems Tower, but instead of standing alone, it was connected by golden bridges to every smaller building around it. Across the top of the painting were the words, "A city is only bright when everyone shines." Ethan stared at it, unable to speak. Anna, he said finally, his voice low, This is extraordinary. She smiled shyly. It is for the showcase, but after that, I want to give it to you, because you helped everyone shine. He swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. You have no idea what that means to me. Angela joined them quietly, her eyes soft with pride. She painted what she sees, she said, and what she sees is what you have made possible. That night, as they left the building, the rain began again soft, silver drops gliding down the glass walls. The tower lights reflected against the wet pavement, stretching like golden rivers. Ethan held the umbrella for the Brooks family as they walked toward the car. Mr. Hale, Anna said suddenly, can I tell you something? Of course, he said. When I was little, I used to think people in tall buildings could not see the ground, she said. But you proved me wrong. You saw us when no one else did. Ethan smiled gently. And you taught me how to look. Angela placed her hand on Anna's shoulder. You both found each other when you needed it most, she said softly. When they reached the car, Lucy waved up at the glowing tower. Good night, big shiny building, she said. Keep our drawings safe. Ethan laughed quietly. It will, he said. Later that evening, he stayed behind in the lobby. The building was silent, except for the soft hum of the lights. He stood in front of the large mural that Anna and the children had painted weeks ago, the one that said, "It takes many hearts to make one light." He thought about how far they had all come from a little girl selling drawings on a rainy street to a community of children who now believed in their own voices. He whispered to the mural, as if speaking to the city itself, "You were right, Anna. One light becomes many." At that moment, Dana stepped out of the elevator, holding her coat. Heading home, sir? In a minute, he said. I just wanted to see the light one more time. She smiled knowingly. It suits you better than the boardroom ever did. Ethan chuckled softly. Yes, it does. As he turned to leave, the reflection of the tower shimmered in the glass doors gold against the dark sky, alive and breathing. And though the city outside was vast and full of stories he would never know, he understood one thing deeply now. True legacy is not about how high you build, but how much light you leave behind when you are gone. That night, while the rain fell steady over the city, the Hail Systems Tower stood as a silent lighthouse, a monument not to power, but to compassion. And at its heart, somewhere between paint and memory, a little girl's art continued to keep the darkness away. The morning of the art showcase arrived with golden sunlight streaming across the city skyline. Hale Systems Tower shone like a lighthouse in the center of it all, but this time, the glow came not from its glass or steel, it came from the hearts inside it. Down on the 14th floor, excitement buzzed through the hallways. Children ran back and forth, hanging their paintings and arranging handmade signs that read, "The School of Light, a celebration of hope." Angela moved gracefully between them, making sure every frame was straight. Mrs. Green directed the final details, her voice both calm and full of pride. Ethan Hale stood near the entrance, dressed simply, his sleeves rolled up. He no longer looked like a businessman preparing for a gala, he looked like a man at peace. When Anna arrived with Lucy by her side, carrying her newest painting wrapped in brown paper, the whole room seemed to brighten. "Are you ready, Anna?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I am nervous, but Mama says nerves mean you care." "She is absolutely right," he said with a smile. "And everyone here already cares about you." Angela smiled at him. "You are becoming quite the mentor, Mr. Hale." He laughed quietly. "She has been the mentor all along." When the showcase began, parents, volunteers, and local journalists filled the room. The air smelled of paper, paint, and coffee. The children stood proudly beside their artwork, explaining the stories behind each piece. Ethan moved among them, listening, smiling, shaking hands, but his heart kept drifting toward Anna's corner. When it was her turn, Anna unwrapped her painting. Gasps filled the room. It was the same piece she had been working on for days, the city of light connected by golden bridges. But now, a new detail glowed at the top of the canvas, a small figure of a girl holding a lantern, guiding the light outward into the sky. The plaque beneath it read, "Dedicated to everyone who chooses kindness over power." Ethan's throat tightened as applause filled the room. He caught Angela's gaze, and she nodded gently, her eyes glistening. Lucy clapped loudly, shouting, "That is my sister." When the applause quieted, Anna turned toward Ethan. "This is not just my painting," she said softly. "It is ours, because you showed us what light can do." For a moment, Ethan could not speak. Then, quietly, he said, "No, Anna, you showed me." The rest of the event passed in a blur of laughter and smiles. Reporters asked questions, parents took photos, and the tower glowed from within. When the evening came and the crowd began to leave, Ethan stood by the window looking out at the city. Angela joined him, resting a gentle hand on his arm. "She has given this city more than she knows," Angela said. Ethan nodded slowly. "So have you. You gave her the strength to keep shining." Outside, the sun sank below the horizon, and the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, as if echoing the painting on the wall. For the first time in his life, Ethan did not think about the next deal, the next meeting, or the next goal. He thought only about this moment, the light, the laughter, the peace, and the little girl who had taught him that redemption was not found in power, but in kindness. The evening after the showcase was quiet. The last guests had left, and the echoes of laughter still lingered in the halls of the School of Light. The paintings remained hanging on the walls, glowing under the soft golden lights like silent guardians of every child's dream. Ethan Hale stood alone in the center of the room, his hands resting in his pockets. The city outside shimmered in silver reflections across the windows. For a moment, he simply breathed slow, steady, peaceful. It was the first time in years he had felt that kind of stillness. He turned when he heard small footsteps behind him. Anna and Lucy were there, hand in hand, with Angela just a few steps behind. Anna carried something wrapped in a small cloth. "You did not think we would leave without saying goodbye, did you?" Angela said softly. Ethan smiled. "I was hoping you would not." Anna stepped forward and handed him the bundle. "This is for you," she said. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small canvas. On it was a simple scene, a tall tower standing beside a small girl who held a lantern up toward the sky. Above them, the words were written in neat, golden letters, "Thank you for seeing the light." Ethan stared at the painting for a long moment before speaking. "Anna," he said quietly, "this is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me." She smiled, her eyes bright. "It is true. You saw the light in people when no one else did, even in Mama." Even in me. Angela placed her hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. She is right, she said. You gave us a second chance, Mr. Hale, and that kind of kindness changes more than lives, it changes hearts. Oh, he nodded slowly, emotion thick in his throat. You gave me something too, he said. You reminded me what it means to be human. For a few quiet seconds, they all stood together, surrounded by the golden glow of the room. The city hummed softly beyond the glass, alive but gentle, as if it too were listening. Lucy yawned and leaned against her mother's leg. It is bedtime, she whispered. Angela smiled and nodded. It is. Ethan knelt down to Lucy's level. Good night, little one, he said kindly. Keep painting the sunshine. She nodded sleepily. I will. Anna hugged him, then a quick, pure hug filled with gratitude and innocence. Good night, Mr. Hale, she said softly. Good night, Anna, he whispered back. As they walked toward the elevator, Ethan watched them go, the mother who had once struggled in silence, the little sister with laughter like bells, and the small girl whose courage had rebuilt his soul. When the doors closed, he turned back toward the room, his eyes falling once more on the mural that read, It takes many hearts to make one light. He whispered to himself, and one small light to change the world. Outside, the Hale Systems Tower glowed in the night like a candle against the horizon. The city below shimmered with life, every window a spark of hope, and somewhere between the stars and the streets, the story of a little black girl with a paintbrush and a heart full of kindness became more than a memory, it became a reminder that sometimes the smallest voice can awaken the biggest heart, and that love, once shared, never fades. It only spreads just like light,